You've got near immortal sword fighters, decapitations, an insanely awesome villain, an entire soundtrack made up by one of the greatest bands of all time in Queen. What movie is it? Well, there can be only one. Hey everybody, what's going on? Today we're going to be talking about a movie that I grew up with that, granted, I have not watched it in a long time, so it probably lives more in my memories than anything else. But today we're going to be talking about Highlander from 1986 that stars Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery, Clancy Brown, and in my memories, it's an amazing movie. Does it still hold up? We're going to talk about that. I will warn you, there's going to be spoilers in this, but then again, this movie came out in 86, so that's a long enough spoiler warning time. What this movie is about is we start off at a wrestling match. It's kind of cool to see who the wrestlers they have are in the ring. You have the Fabulous Freebirds, you have the Tonga Kid, you have Jumpin' Jim Bronzell. They're at Madison Square Garden. Apparently, it was supposed to be a hockey game, and you have Christopher Lambert watching the wrestling match as well. All of a sudden, he gets this funny look on his face, and he goes to the parking garage and meets up with this other guy. And this other guy is like, "Hey, McLeod," and I can't remember the guy's name. And he's just like, "It's time to die." And he pulls out a really old-looking sword. Kind of looks like Inigo Montoya's sword in some ways. And Lambert pulls out his own sword, and they fight. And it turns out they're fighting to the death. Lambert cuts off his head, and then this is a part that is really cheesy for me. That really, I won't say it holds up. It's really silly now. When the guy dies, it's cool to see the whole area kind of go crazy, and electricity and like windows are blowing up and everything. So that stuff's cool. But the quickening that we find out that this is where he's getting the power from the other guy. Lambert almost has a orgasmic reaction to it. But anyway, so he gets the power and tries to run, but gets arrested. He hides his sword before then and has to go back to get it later. He ends up getting out of jail, and as this stuff's going on, we're also getting memories from his past because come to find out, he's been around a really, really long time, and we learn of his time in the Scottish Highlands with his clan, and he goes into a battle, which he meets up with Clancy Brown's character back in the day. Clancy Brown plays Kurgan, by far the best part of this movie. You can argue that Sean Connery is the best part of this movie, but I'm sorry. For me, it's Kurgan. Clancy Brown is amazing in this. Kurgan kills him, but before he can cut off Connor's head, Connor is Christopher Lambert's part, before he can cut off his head, they're separated, and he's like, "Another time, McLeod." So all of a sudden he's dead, but then the next day he comes back to life. He's banished from his village. 5 years later, he's met a girl, and they're living out in the middle of nowhere. So go back to this movie jumps back and forth from past and present. All the while, as we're learning about the past and what is going on, why are they immortal and things like that, even though we don't really get a totally clear answer till the sequel, which they had to redo the sequel sort of to explain away the stupid alien thing that they came up with. But anyway, as we're going, there is a lady that wrote. She works for the police, but she also wrote a book on swords, and she's trying to track down Connor's sword, and they end up meeting and everything. But all the while, Kurgan has made it to America, and he is about as punk rock as you can get, and he's causing chaos, and he's trying to track down all the other immortals. There's not many left. We only see a few that make it to America. But it's basically like this. You have good people and bad people with these powers, with this immortality. if someone good wins, that's good because they would use their powers for good. And if someone evil wins, well, the world's in trouble. And Kurgan seems to be the last bad one left, but he also seems to be the strongest because from what you can kind of tell, he's probably taken out more people than anybody, so he's got more power. So the stuff in America is about Kurgan tracking down Connor and all the other people. All the while, again, we're learning about the past. In the past, Connor meets Ramirez, who is from Spain, but he's an Egyptian being played by Sean Connery. But we'll just leave it at that. But he's the one that trains Connor how to sword fight so he can survive. But Ramirez, Connery, is killed by Kurgan, and so he doesn't make it to America. He does make it to the sequel, but anyway, because they weren't going to have a sequel without Sean Connery. Which, by the way, he was probably the best part of the sequel, if I'm remembering it right. He has some pretty funny scenes. But anyway, so the whole thing, it's supposed to get down to there can be only one. And in the end, Christopher Lambert gets the girl. He kills Kurgan, and he's the only one left. And there's a really cool scene where he says the phrase, and it's kind of got a cool echo, and the windows are shattering behind him, and it's kind of neat. And then he has the orgasmic thing again, and it's kind of weird. But but anyway, this movie, all right, I still love this movie, and I will admit, this movie is amazingly cheesy. There is just a lot of silliness in this movie. Again, when they experience the quickening, it's almost orgasmic, and it's funny. Some of the acting's really cheesy. The sword fighting isn't the greatest. Especially now, you have more choreographed sword fights in movies nowadays with stuntmen that they're getting to do more of a stunts nowadays and everything. These guys, it's fine, but the sword fighting isn't the most amazing stuff. The sword fight between Ramirez and Kurgan in the past, while this castle is crashing down around them on green screen, is pretty cool. I will admit that sword fight's cool, but the sword fighting for the most part, it's fine. It's not amazing. But the story being told around it I like, because we keep getting flashbacks to Connor's life, not just from the Highlands, but also other parts of his life as well. We see him, in the early parts of the United States where he gets in a duel and the guy keeps stabbing him and he keeps getting up. He's drunk, so he's not really hiding his powers like he's supposed to. We see where he saves a young girl from the Nazis, and this young girl ends up being like his assistant for the rest of the movie, and she's been with him like this whole time, and of course she's older than him now because he doesn't age. So there's just all sorts of story arcs going on, and we're learning as we go what Connor has been throughout his life. Okay, so I really like Christopher Lambert in this. Again, he's the funniest when it comes to the quickening. Now, when Kurgan goes through the quickening, it's cool. He makes it cool. Clancy Brown makes it cool. Christopher Lambert almost makes it sexual. But both of them, I still enjoy the performances. Sean Connery in this is amazing as well. It's still weird, him being an Egyptian from Spain being played by Sean Connery. But anyway, he's really great in this as the mentor. What's also great about this one is not too long ago we talked about the movie See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and Alan North played a cop in that, and he was hilarious. Well, Alan North is a cop in this as well, so he's kind of playing the same part in a way. Not as funny, but his character still has a little bit of humor to him, so it was funny seeing him in this. But as I said before, the best... Oh, and before, I have to mention this. You can't have a movie about the Scottish past without having James Cosmo. And, of course, James Cosmo's in this. So, anyway, You know you've got a movie about the Scottish past. Of course, James Cosmo is going to show up. But okay, the best part of this movie is by far Clancy Brown as Kurgan. It's unfortunate that this was the only time he ever got to play this character. Kurgan is insane. He starts off as just this evil black knight, but then as you could tell as time went on, he just embraced the crazy in history. When you meet him in America, he's, long ponytail, wearing leather, just all this stuff. And just everything he gets to do. He gets to do a couple different montages driving a car. And Clancy Brown, I would love to hear him talk about this because he looks like he was having so much fun. First of all, he takes this car and this old lady is in it, and he's taking the old lady for a ride, and she's freaking out, and he's laughing, and then he takes the love interest for a ride too, and it's so crazy that she passes out. Look, he just the way he acts is insane, and it's hard to explain. And if you've never seen this movie, watching it for Clancy Brown's performance as Kurgan is worth the price of admission alone. But the great thing is this is on Amazon Prime, so you can watch it for free if you have Amazon Prime. But really, another big linchpin of this movie is the soundtrack. I love the band Queen, and they did. Now there is a score to the movie. Don't get me wrong; they didn't do the score. They may have been involved in parts of it. I don't know, but all the songs in this movie were Queen, and it just gives this movie just the right kind of feel. And I mean, again, as a big fan of Queen, it bumps this movie up a few points for me. I'm sure I'm a little biased. I'm sure, but just from the opening credits, which the opening credits themselves are just boring. Nowadays, of course, they're talking about remaking this movie, and I'm sure they'll have like really fancy opening credits if they do it again. But the credits for this are just boring, just words on a screen. But you have the Queen music playing with it, and it just makes it so much better. So, yeah, is this movie cheesy? Yes. Is this movie perfect? Not even close. Do I love this movie for what it is and for the sum of, or for the parts of the entire thing, all the pieces? Do I love it for just all the little things that make it work, that come together and they work? Yes. Yes, I do. And when it comes to Highlander, there can be only one. See you later.